Hi all, welcome to the fifth part in this series on how to create your very own text editor in Go programming language. So in this video we have a lot of work to do. We need to implement scrolling and navigation. So let's scroll down to the display text buffer. So just to give you a clue of how this scrolling is going to work. So you see this text buffer row and text buffer column, the variables we've implemented within the display text buffer. They do rely on the offset column and offset row respectively, so that when we later print the actual character, like say in here, so see like this text buffer row and text buffer column, this already gives us the possibility to print a certain range of lines and a certain range of columns based on those given offsets. So in order to implement scrolling, all we need to do is to alter those offsets based on the cursor position, and that's what the entire scroll text buffer function is all about. So without further ado, let's actually go and implement it. So here right above the display text buffer, I want to create a new function called scroll text buffer, and here it's as simple as I can say if the current row is less than the offset row. In this case, we want to set the offset row equal to the current row. Now, if current column is less than the offset column, in this case, we want to set the offset column equals to the current column. And two more cases. So if current row is greater equals than offset row plus whatever number of rows we have in our terminal. In this case, offset row is equal to current row minus rows plus 1. And a very similar thing for the column. So if current column is greater or equals than the offset column plus cols, in this case offset column is going to be equal current column minus cols plus 1. And that's it, believe it or not. So now to sort of make it work, we need to handle the user input properly. But even before that, we can fake the user input by explicitly specifying the values for the offset column and for the current column and the current row. So if we just go down, so just save this and go down. So for instance, here in the main loop, we can say that current row is equal to, let's say, 3. And yeah, that's it for now. So yeah, I just comment this out for a while. So, and let's make sure it compiles and runs. So build shell and ego and open its own source file, right? So here you see like we start displaying the lines from the first line. We actually need to print the cursor position properly. Before we flush here, I want to say termbox dot set cursor, and to calculate the cursor position properly, we need to say current column minus the offset column and current row minus the offset row. All right, right, quit, and here we go. So yeah, the cursor is on the line 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so actually to scroll it needs to go below the line. This is line 25, and yeah, current row, edit, let's make it 25. Right, quit, and it should now scroll a little bit. Yeah, it's not exactly, and that's because we actually forgot to call the scroll routine here. So just before displaying the text buffer, we want to scroll the text buffer first, because this is the exact case when the current row is greater or equals than offset row plus rows. Okay. Yeah, and you see now we've just scrolled, so it just starts from FMT now, and the cursor is no longer going sort of off the screen, which is good. But now we obviously need to automate this so that instead of changing the variables, we could press the keys and manipulate the current row. So in order to achieve that, we need to implement another two essential functions. So now let's create a function getKey, and I create a variable called key event that we're supposed to be returning, and this is the type of termbox and .event. And now we want to say switch, but first we need to dynamically assign the termbox dot event poll, whatever return value is there, and then we can switch this particular event type. And there might be two cases. So the good case scenario is we have the termbox dot event key like this, and in this case we want to assign our key event equals to event, and otherwise case termbox dot event error. In this case we just panic and provide the event error message here, and eventually we return our key event. Now let's quickly make sure everything compiles and runs here. Too many arguments. Sorry, not event poll obviously, but poll event. And I forgot to specify the type of this function, which is also termbox dot event. Yeah. Yeah, great. And now, last but not least, is to implement the function called process key press. So here all the magic is going to be happening. So process key press. So let's start by creating the key event here and dynamically assign the value of whatever return is returned by the get key, like this. And if key event dot key is equals to termbox dot key escape, termbox dot close to restore the terminal, and os dot exit status code 0, which means everything is just fine. Then else if key event dot char, so if the character is not equal to 0, so in this case we are dealing not with keys like arrow keys, page up, page down, escape, etc., someone those containing escape sequences, but the actual ASCII characters. So in this case we want to handle the character presses like in the view mode there would be a bunch of commands, in the insert mode, in edit mode there would be like processing, like inserting the rune into the text buffer, but for now let's just make a placeholder here. So here we would be handling chars, so yeah, and else so otherwise we want to do something based on switching the key event dot key. So here we'll handle our arrow keys. So let's start with vertical scrolling, and I can simply say case tombox dot key arrow up, and here I want to say if current row is not equal to 0, I want to say current row minus minus, which means we can put the cursor one line up until we reach the beginning of the document. Then case tombox dot key arrow down is very similar. So if current row is less than the length of the text buffer minus 1, in this case we simply say current row plus plus. So we do increment the current row until we hit the very bottom of the text buffer, and this should already be fairly enough to scroll the text in the view mode. But to make sure it works, we need to do the following thing. So here I get rid of this code and after flushing I simply call my process key press here. And if I did everything properly, it should now actually start scrolling the text buffer. So let's give it a try. Yeah, and it does, exactly. Yeah, yeah. The problem is that, it just doesn't go below, which is good, and it doesn't go higher than the very first line, which is also good. And escape still works for escaping for now. Just for now, we'll leave it as is. And yeah, let's get rid of this line because we really want to start the very first one. So right, quit. And now we should start the first line. Yes, we do. So yeah, now we can scroll vertically, which is really cool. But we cannot yet scroll horizontally, so like we can't. So let's implement that as well. So case tombox dot key arrow left. And here the logic is going to be a bit more complicated. So the first case scenario to handle here is if current column is not equal to 0. In this case, we say current column minus minus. But in case if or else if current row is greater than 0, want to say current row minus minus decrementing the current row, and current column is equal to the length of the text buffer indexed by the current row. So what this code does, so let's say, so here is the cursor, so I'm moving to the left. So if the current column, so this value, if it's not 0, here it's like the actual value plus 1, but yeah. So until it can move to the left, it moves, but when it hits the edge, it needs to wrap to the previous line. You see, like it wraps to the previous line. So in case if the current row is greater than 0, so this is not going to work on the very first line. So on the very first line, it just stuck there forever. So just to give you an idea, if I go to the beginning, so here, it's not wrapping to the previous line because there is no previous line. And here, yes, and here. So otherwise, if there is indeed the previous line, so if current row is greater than 0, then current call, then we decrement the row, so we just literally jump one row up, similarly to what we've been doing here for key arrow up. And then to make sure that the cursor is not trailing somewhere, it just goes exactly to where the length of the previous row, so to the very end of the previous row. And something similar is going to happen for the key arrow right as well. So case term box key arrow right. So if current call is less than the length of the current line, to get it we say text buffer indexed by the current row. In this case, simply do current column plus plus. And else if, so line wrapping, if the current row is less than the length of the text buffer minus 1. In this case, we increment the current row and current call is equal to 0. So say the cursor is at the end of the line and it's not yet the end of the buffer, so I press right and just increment the row, and the column gets to the very beginning of the next line. So that's how the wrapping works. So this sort of functionality, these kind of features. Yeah, so let's right quit and build. And define O character, 0 obviously. So now we go down, but also we can go right, we can go left. So let's test this. We go left, hit and wrap here. We can wrap here, and also scrolling is also working. You see, like scrolling is also working. See, it's very tiny little scrolling here, but yeah. Or maybe here it's going, yeah, here the scrolling is bigger. Yeah, so we can scroll down, scroll left here, which is really cool. Yeah, scrolling works like a charm. And to handle the edge cases, yeah, there is still an issue. So like we can move the cursor where it shouldn't be. So we'll handle that case as well. But for now, so we cannot go beyond the first line and the very last line. Yeah, but we still have that annoying issue. Yeah, we can go down below. That like the cursor should not be here. You see, like if I say like right, it just wraps, but if I say left, it seemingly goes into the space where actually no bytes exist in the text buffer. So we need to handle this as well properly. So to do this, let's drop back, and here, so after the switch case has been completed, so here I can simply say if current column is greater than the length of the text buffer indexed by the current row, we want to set the current column to exactly the length of the text buffer indexed by the current row. And now this annoying glitch should be resolved. Let's have a look. What? Oh, I just forgot the curly braces, sorry. Like this. Okay, so now if say we go somewhere here, so instead of going up, it just goes to where the previous line actually ends. So now it's no longer going beyond the unwanted like places in a text buffer where they literally do not exist. Because if we try to put the character there when we implement our insert routine, this would result in horrible error. Okay, so a couple more things to do in this part is to implement the home and page up and page down keys. So let's quickly do that, and we are done. So case tombox dot key home. So all I want to do is to say the current column equals to 0 unconditionally, because home brings the cause to the very beginning of the line. Case tombox dot key end goes to the end of the line, so current column is going to be equal length of the text buffer indexed by the current row. Now case tombox dot page up. So what I want to do here is I say if current row is minus integer rows divided by 4. So I want to not to scroll the entire page on page up, but I want to scroll the fourth part of the screen, no matter how big the screen is. So if it's like 24, then that's 24 rows by 4. If it's like more than 24, that would be different values, so that I have a smooth scrolling, which is really comfortable way to scroll. So if this is greater than 0, so to avoid any overflows, in this case current row minus equals to make it integer rows divided by 4. Okay, and similarly for page up, case tombox for page down. So if current row plus same thing and is less than the length of the text buffer minus 1. In this case, current row plus equals, make it integer rows divided by 4. Yeah, so let's test this out. Undefined tombox page up, page down, and obviously it should be a key. Okay, so and home. Great. Now if we go somewhere like here, yeah, now let's test the page up, page down. So page down goes the fourth part of the screen, yes, which is good, and doesn't go further because it just goes out of range. Same page up, doesn't go further because it goes out of range, so the boundaries boundary handling is working. And yeah, so page down. Now the navigation is awesome. Long line and home and home. Yeah, so navigation works just like a champ. So now the very last thing to do is to check whether this works on Windows, and we are done. So I say wine task mgr and new task command line, and I want to say ego.executable e.go, so navigate through the source file. Okay, down, so arrow keys seems to be working, so page down, page up, and okay, wrapping is working, and home. Yeah, everything works just like a champ. So yeah guys, this is it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.